Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, and I'm joined by my two co-hosts, Michael Hall
Hey, what's going on, everyone?
and Michael Reed.
Yo, what's up?
And we're also joined by Lake Lewis, the CEO of Sports Journey. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Lake.
Appreciate you guys having me on.
Hey, we are huge fans of you. We've been following you for years, and your reputation precedes yourself. And I want to ask you first, there's a lot to go over. We have a bunch of news coming through the NFL, and especially with the Redskins. Last week, the FedEx, Pepsi, and Nike all asked Dan Snyder to change the name, and then a week later, now they're saying they want to rescind their stake in the team. So let me get your opinion on that, Lewis.
I think, it's a situation that has been around for a long time. I'm a little older than you guys. This has been going on since I was a kid, and I'll say, well, I appreciate the compliment. but I'll say, I think over the past several, maybe 2 decades with Dan Snyder being the owner, the Redskins haven't won. I mean, they've 3 playoff appearances. When I was younger, this was a football team that was in the playoffs every year competing for a Super Bowl. I mean, I think they were in 4 Super Bowls in 11 years. So, I think when you lose, things get compounded a little bit more. And right now with the culture and climate that's going on in the country, it just seems like the proper time, and it's a fitting time to possibly change the name, which I think they will be doing. We'll probably be hearing something about this over the next week or so, new change. So, yeah, I mean, this is what happens. But when money speaks, you have to listen at the end of the day. And when corporate sponsors get involved, everyone sits up. The hair on your back raises up a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of the Redskins name change, there has been a bunch floating around Redskins Twitter this week. So I have to ask you, do you have a kind of name in mind that you hold dear to you? Like, I'll give you a couple examples. The Red Tails, the Warriors, the Red Wolves, and the Red Hawks have been floated around a little bit. Is there one that stands out to you that you think is the number one draft pick for Dan Snyder to pick?
Well, I actually was going to ask you this, my friend. You have that W on your hat, and I didn't know if it was a prelude for Warriors, but I think that's where they're going. I mean, I could be wrong, but I know that Dan Snyder has that trademark. That was something that he did a couple years back when he was trying to get an Arena Football League team, and so that name is still there. And it's just when you think about how sudden this has become, this name change has been told we need this done now. And, you're 3 weeks away, from training camp starting. So it kind of sounds like they want this to get done before the season starts. And to me, the only way it can be done is maybe going with the name Warrior, since it's already trademarked. You don't have to worry about the legal process of it. You could keep the team colors. You could keep everything in place currently as is, except for a logo change on a helmet in the middle of the field and obviously the name.
I think that's where all signs are kind of pointing to right now is the Warriors. It kind of checks all the boxes. I mean, Dan Snyder, obviously, like you said, he has a trademark. It feels homage to the Native American culture. It's an ode to the military, which do very important things to them. And I just think that it makes too much sense. They wouldn't have to change things up too much, like you said, with the logo. They can keep the spear. They can make a W. And I think that that's kind of where this is going.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, and the W is it's the Washington Senators from the 1930s, I believe. Yeah, and it's my signature hat. I always wear it for every episode. And look, I was actually thinking about that today, Lake. It's like, man, I've been wearing this W hat for years now. How crazy would it be if they switch to the Warriors and the W becomes a symbol? I mean, it fits right into place. And I think you're 100% right with that, Lake, because, Ron Rivera kind of laid out the criteria for us, where Reed had alluded to that you wanted to be able to honor Native Americans, you want to be able to honor the military and DC, and also be able to keep the tradition and the color scheme. But I want to ask you, is this like unfounded grounds to where Ron Rivera, being a head coach, coming in one offseason convincing Dan to switch names? Like, how big of an impact is that? How much sway do you think Ron Rivera really has?
Well, I mean, he's a Hispanic coach. The only coach in the league of Hispanic origin, and we all know if you go down the history charts, Hispanic, Latina. I mean, that's Native American, blood at the end of the day. So it's just fitting for him to be involved in this, right? And rightfully so. I would be shocked. And I said this, earlier in the week, I would absolutely be shocked if when Ron Rivera interviewed for this job that this subject did not come up.
Right.
I'm pretty certain it did. And the other thing I want to put out there, and I have to be careful how I say this, having some, oomph with Nike here. I will say this. It's no coincidence the stuff's taken off their site. It's no coincidence that today Walmart, Target, all the other companies have Redskin stuff taken off their site. Like I said before, I mean, politically correct, politically, charged climate right now, whatever you want to call it. This name change is happening, but I also know there's money involved. And I keep going back to that because that's what makes the world go round.
Yeah.
And for them to take this stuff off their site leads me to believe that they know the name change that's coming, and perhaps they're building up. I know how to do some web coding. I know I went to WashingtonWarriors.com today and nothing came up. So,
you know what? I about a week ago, I saw a tweet that was talking about that got purchased for $9,000 about a week ago, only $9,000. So it kind of makes the timing of that's a little weird. Maybe did they buy that?
Well, all I know is when you go to, at least earlier today when I did, something comes up, just some random ad that comes up. So someone did purchase it, they got a little bit more back than $9,000.
I hope so. I read that. $9,000 from Dan Snyder. That's it.
Right.
Yeah, they got a little bit more back from that. But I mean, guys, look, this situation is it's touchy to a lot of people, but I keep stressing to, I've covered several teams over my career, and without question, I'm not saying this because I'm originally from DC, but this is a loyal fan base. This is a fan base that wears their emotions on their sleeve, bar none. And if things are going great, it's great. If things are going bad, changes need to be made. We hear that all the time, unfortunately, over the last 20 years. But I think that to a lot of fans, I just say this to you. A name change does not take away your memories. It does not take away singing the fight song. It does not take away from, the end zone band in between, commercial breaks.
Right.
It doesn't change any of that. It doesn't change you creating lifelong friendships with people you come to the games with or who you've met at the games. I've met several fans over the years that now are friends of mine. And, so that stuff never disappears. This is just a name change. It's not a culture change. It's not, the team moving to a new city. Imagine if you were a fan of the Cleveland Browns at one point or the Baltimore Colts and your team just up and moves on you. That's not what's happening. In the middle of the night. Yeah, exactly. You're still going to have the same players to root for, create new traditions. And hopefully the biggest tradition that will be in place going forward is this football team winning games. That'll cure all this stuff right now.
Yeah, and I want to ask you real quick because it just popped up in my head. I was thinking about this earlier in the week, and I want to ask you, do you think that there was any indication from Dan Snyder that the reason why he was reluctant to change a name is because, he was a Redskins fan. His dad took him to Redskins games. Do you think there was some sort of reluctance from Dan because he hasn't won anything as the Redskins owner? So if he changed the name, it would almost be a failure of his ownership while he's been there without winning anything with the Redskins name. Do you think that would have anything to do with it, with pride?
No, I really don't think that was it. I mean, it's a good point that you're making, but I think what it boils down to is that he doesn't feel like he's doing anything to demean Native Americans, with the name or with his brand, which is his team.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, a lot of people don't realize this, but Dan Snyder does a lot for Native American community and has, doesn't get always advertised, but he has. I mean, and that's a fact. I also like to tell people, a gentleman that I think the world of, one of the nicest guys you ever meet, Robert Dorr is, he's Native American, but he runs the Redskins security. He's head of security for FedEx Field. His family comes in from South Dakota once a year, and they're the family that comes out on the field and they do tribal dance, whatever. That's his family, his direct family. So Dan Snyder's not being racist by this. The Redskins aren't operating in a racist fashion under any circumstances when it comes to Native Americans, except that name is offensive to some Native Americans. And I've always said, if it's offensive to one, it's offensive. It may not be offensive to me. It may not be offensive to others, but we're living in a time right now where Black Lives Matters. And there's a lot of things about that, yes, have been blatantly offensive to me. by the way I've been treated as a black man in this country. But with all that said, I can't tell another person what is and what isn't offensive to them.
Right.
But if it does bother them, as an adult, you have to listen to them and find out what it is.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. And the one thing that I think it was Andrew Bryant. Oh my goodness, I forgot his last name. But he said that he was on 106.7 earlier, and he said it would have to take a Herculean kind of movement to get the name change before the season. And earlier you alluded to Dan Snyder possibly already having the trade rights to that. So do you agree with Andrew that it's basically impossible for this name change to happen before the season?
Me personally, I mean, obviously I'm running a business myself, but it's not, trust me, it's pennies, compared to what the Redskins are running or the NFL in that nature. But I just know from the legal side of stuff that I have to deal with and trademark and things like that. It takes time for things to get done. It does. So in that regard, he is right. But if you already have something trademarked and you don't have to really change your overall setup, I don't think it's something that can't be done. I think it can actually be done within a 3-week span. And I've also heard some other stuff. This might be a little breaking something for you, but I've heard that perhaps training camp gets pushed back another 2 weeks. So perhaps, training camp doesn't kick off until the first or second week of August, since those 2 preseason games have been taken away from the schedule. Maybe now you give guys a little bit more time. And I think, from what I was told, it's also a chance for them to kind of quarantine themselves a little bit just to make sure everybody's healthy so that when they do report, everything's in place. Well, that just gives the Redskins 2 more weeks, to get this whole thing rectified. I just don't think companies would be, we're talking about multi-million-dollar companies would be pulling merchandise that they know, listen, whether you're in agreement with the name change or not, there are a lot of Redskins fans out there that would like to purchase some memorabilia just to have it,
right.
since it's getting ready to change. For it not to be available, companies are losing money by that. So I would like to think that something's already in play here.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right about that. Like you said, the indicators are there, and there's no coincidence that Walmart, Target, Nike have all pulled their merchandise. It seems like they had the up and up, and they know what's going down. So before we let you go, Lake, I have to ask you. Deshaun Jackson, former Redskins wide receiver, popped up into the news today, kind of with an anti-Semitic message with it, and he thought he was quoting Hitler, but it come to find out that he actually wasn't. It was like a fake quote. But I wanted to get your input on the situation because do you think the Eagles are going to cut him over this?
First of all, they'd be foolish to cut him. He did something that was not good. And I said this earlier on a Philadelphia outlet. Anytime you reference Hitler, nothing good comes from that. Period. I mean, let him stay where he is, forgotten, hopefully.
Right.
So nothing good comes from that. And at the end of the day, the guy that's cutting Deshaun Jackson's check, Jeffrey Lurie, the owner of the Eagles, if I'm not mistaken, is Jewish background too. So it's just not a good look. I know Deshaun. Am I going to say that he's a racist? No, not at all. But, sometimes people say things and do things that make you, question what was their motivation or their judgment. I think in this regard, Deshaun just used poor judgment. You have to really research, what you're saying and what you're doing and not to stray from that. But I do have to bring this up because it bothered me. And I don't normally go at people, but I saw a comment and it's clearly less important than what Deshaun, this whole thing with Deshaun is, because you're talking about anti-Semitic, rhetoric. But I saw something from Asante Samuel this weekend about Darryl Green, and it bothered me to the point where I had to tell Asante, man, know your craft, man, know your craft's history before you say something foolish. For him to even bring up Darryl Green to help his cause for getting the Hall of Fame,
right?
That's probably why you're not going to get in right away. I mean, Darryl Green's accolades stood alone, and he earned all the credit and praise that he gets, and he's an even better human being. So that bothered me a little bit, but that just goes to show you that sometimes people say things and do things without researching before they put it out. And once you put it out on social media, there's no taking it back. It's screenshot as soon as you put it up there, so you can't run from that.
Yeah, and I actually have friends that have been like posting on social media about the type of thing that Deshaun Jackson was saying, and the way I took it, it wasn't like what he's saying. It wasn't hateful towards anybody. It was more trying to like educate people like him to be able to see what he was trying to push, and it just got wrapped into the fold, and he just quoted something that was horrible. And honestly, I just don't understand why anybody think putting a quote from Adolf Hitler would be a good idea in today's
nothing
age.
he said was true.
Right.
Anyway, his actions weren't true. So I mean, that's the wrong person if you're going to paraphrase someone or use them. No, stay away from idiots. That's what you have to do. And Deshaun, I'm sure he'll learn from this. But at the end of the day, and let's call it like it is. He's too talented for the Eagles, a team that needs receiver play.
Yeah.
And this he's a good guy. I mean, he's a guy that I consider a friend. I would definitely not come up on here and try to cover for his actions. I just think that was a bad look, and he knows that.
Yeah, and it goes back. This is the same franchise that like kept Riley Cooper and actually gave him a contract extension after he yelled the N-word at that concert. And then it's also the same team that shipped out Deshaun Jackson because Chip Kelly called him, like said he would like had gang affiliations,
gang ties and gang affiliations.
Right.
And I said this about that. If that's the case, there's a lot of us as African Americans that probably we're all gang members if that's the case. Because I know where I grew up in D.C. and I still run into some guys every now and then. Doesn't mean that they're in my house. Doesn't mean I'm hanging out with them. But if someone speaks to me, I will speak back. And that's all that was about. Those are just the little silly things that people who don't understand the circumstances of other people, they interject their own thoughts on it, and that's not good. And that's what we're dealing with this whole name change right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, Lake, before I let you go, I know I said I only had one more for you, but
it's fine. I'm having a good time, man.
But I have another one for you. Morgan Moses, we had him on last week, and he actually broke some news because I didn't know this about Morgan, but Morgan's father passed 3 months ago, and he said that Ron Rivera was the first person that talked to him, and that's really stuck with him because it's the whole family atmosphere. So you having the relationships with the team, what is your takeaway from Ron Rivera so far in this new regime that you've been able to see?
Well, and I also say this about Morgan. He's a friend too, and I don't think he'll mind me saying this, but he FaceTimed me the other day and FaceTimed me in the middle of a workout, and the first thing he had to brag about to him, because I've lost a lot of weight myself, but the first thing Morgan bragged about was his weight loss. He's motivated. I mean, he looked really good. He's motivated. And I think that, to go back to your point, Ron Rivera taking that kind of action with Morgan to call him and give him his condolences, that's the kind of stuff that wins guys over. Has nothing to do with what you're doing on the field. It's just how you're approached as a man. And that's Ron Rivera for you. I've been impressed with him from day one. And, everything he says, he means it. He believes what he's saying. And the big key word that I keep hearing from Ron Rivera is we. It's not a lot of I's or me's. It's a lot of we's and us's and things like that. And that's what this young football team needs. So I think a lot of people are going to be surprised with Ron Rivera. It's unfortunate that they didn't get a chance to start working out together, doing camp OTAs.
Yeah.
Because new coach, young team, a second-year quarterback that you're really trying to bring up to speed. You want those guys to work out together. But I think the future is really bright for the Redskins. I really do.
Yeah, and I asked this to Morgan. This was one of the last questions I asked Morgan, and I worded it incorrectly when I asked Morgan. But I have to ask you, under Ron Rivera and this new coaching regime, what player do you think is going to have the biggest stride under this coaching staff?
That's a great question, man. They have so many young, talented football players on this team that it was easy if you asked me this, 2-3 years ago, one guy would clearly jump out. But there's so many young guys that came out of nowhere last year. Terry McLaurin, Steven Sims Jr., Darius Geis. And for me, I'm probably going to end up saying Darius Geis, just because if you look at Ron Rivera's track record with his teams, they've been physical, smash mouth type teams. And that guy, Darius Geis, in the backfield, that's exactly how he is. Put it this way, Ron Rivera's offense will look very similar to LSU's offense in college. They're going to run the football on you quite a bit. AP, Darius Geis, McKissick, they have so many running backs. Bryce Love, if he's healthy, that they're going to be quite effective. Peyton Barber, they're deep at that position. Naturally, Dwayne Haskins is going to benefit from this too, because I think he'll be approached as a man, and he wasn't approached like that last year. I was a big Jay Gruden supporter for the first couple of years, but then last year I just literally was like, I'm done, because it was just totally disrespectful the way they handled him. The way they handled Adrian Peterson last year was disrespectful with Jay Gruden. So Ron Rivera, he's going to help a lot of young guys shine, I think. But I think Darius Geis is benefits the most, on at least on offense.
Yeah, I would love to be able to get you to go more into depth, into detail onto what that was like last year. But look, I don't want to look into the negatives. I don't want to look into the past, because there's a lot of positivity and great energy around this team right now, and I think it's incredibly impressive, given the fact that that was probably one of the worst seasons of Redskins fans. I know that we've had many crappy seasons, but that was probably the worst of the worst that we've had in a long time. And to see the change, the positivity coming back around, I think is incredibly impressive by the social media team, and I think it speaks a lot about Ron Rivera personally.
Yeah, and you know what, guys, this is it's a complete change too, because getting back to the name change, it's just a new day in general. For this franchise, I mean, fans wanted Bruce Allen gone. They got rid of Bruce Allen. They wanted the training staff gone, or Larry Hess, head doc, he's gone. They've done so many good things. They have a minority head coach. They have a female medical doctor that runs the staff. I mean, they have so many positive things. They have an African-American quarterback. I mean, they have so many positive things that are happening. Don't look at this name change as a negative. This is just a new dawn of a new era in Redskins football. And I'm going to have to get used to not saying Redskins, and Washington Warriors, Red Tails, Red Wolves, whatever, football. But again, I ask every fan out there this question. I ask you gentlemen this too. If you knew for a fact that the Redskins could be in 2-3 Super Bowls over a 10-year span, but it would be under a new name or potentially new colors or whatever, would you sign up for it today?
No.
Not even a question.
That's the whole point here, man. Winning changes everything, and if they come out and win, everything will be good to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I really appreciate you coming on, Lake. This is we were looking forward to this when we first got the confirmation. We lit up in our little group chat, and it really speaks a lot about you, Lake, and the hard work that you've put in building your own company and being able to provide, helping other guys, being able to live their lives, and having great people work under you, like Serge. And Serge wanted me to ask you who the best photographer you have is.
I don't know, man. I gotta think about it. No. It's Serge by far. I mean, he's done some wonderful work for me. There's another gentleman a lot of people don't see on the football side, but he did stuff for the Wizards for me. Cedric Reeves. So, I've got just a good group of people. I'd like to think I vetted really hard and got the right people in place, and we have a tight knit group that I consider my family, literally, and. Getting a chance to come on your outlet, I definitely appreciate it. And, I always say this, man, I'm not as big as some people try to portray me as. I'm just a guy that works hard. I love what I do, and I love making friends with fans out there. And if I can help people, I will, because there were times that, that wasn't provided to me. I kind of had to kick my own door in, but I didn't want to have to do that. But now that I'm in, if I can help other people live their dream out, I'm gonna help them as much as I can.
And I really do appreciate it, because that's exactly what you and your guys have been doing, making dreams come true. And we will always be grateful for that, Lake. I really do appreciate that and all the hard work that you do. I really appreciate you coming on, Lake. I really do.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. You have a good week, brother.
Man.
Yeah, you guys take care.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lake. All right, everybody. Woo!
That's some good insight.
Yes, it was.
Lake Lewis is the man.
Yeah, he is.
One of my favorite Redskins insiders of all time.
Yeah, man, he's a cool dude, man.
Yeah,
he's a real cool dude.
So let's move on here. Pro Football Focus has rated that Terry McLaurin is the best wide receiver in the NFC East. I cannot tell you how many Cowboys fans are going ape crap on Twitter hearing about this. I have to agree with them. What about you, Hall?
I've been ringing this bell since a couple months ago when our favorite Dallas Cowboys fan came out and said that by far it's Amari the best in the league, blah blah blah, and had to reference that last year when fourth and whatever it was for the Cowboys, the best receiver in the NFC East took himself off the field. if you're that guy, you're supposed to be that dog. You're supposed to be on the field making that conversion for your team to get him in field goal position to win the division. And I just think that with Terry McLaurin's rookie year, Darius Slay coming out and saying that he was, between him and Devontae Adams, he was the hardest receiver to cover last year that they went up against. And people consider Darius Slay a top corner, one of the top corners in the league, definitely top 5. I just think that, Terry McLaurin in this second year, I don't see a sophomore slump coming from him, especially with Dwayne Haskins taking that next step. A easier offense, if you want to call it that, quarterback friendly offense, and like Lake was just saying, a great running game to complement that downfield speed that Terry had. So I definitely agree with. I don't do this often. I definitely agree with.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with them as well. I know it's a huge race. I know everyone was flipping out saying Amari Cooper. But look, Amari Cooper is a good wide receiver, but let's not act like this dude is like top of the line. That he benefited from heavy offense and Raiders, and then coming to Dallas where they are focusing on the running game and he runs wide open. So what about you, Reed? Do you agree with Pro Football Focus?
Oh yeah, of course I agree with them. Look, it's not anything really against Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper is a very good wide receiver, but Hall hit the nail right on the head. He's always had issues to work at it. He's always been somebody who takes himself out of the game. And Terry McLaurin, there's a reason that he was the highest rated rookie wide receiver since Odell Beckham Jr., according to Pro Football Focus. Like the guy, when he was on the field, he played fantastic. He made plays. He did everything that you could ask for, and he has the type of personality where he's only going to go up from here. He's only going to grow. He's only going to work harder. He's only going to refine his skills. So I don't even think it's a question. And him and Dwayne Haskins' connection, they've been together forever, or for the last few years, working together at Ohio State, and last year with the Redskins. It can only be better for him, man. And I completely agree. PFF knows what they're talking about for once.
Yeah, and it was really funny to see that because I was kind of taken back by it. It's like, oh, Pro Football Focus actually saying something nice about the Redskins player.
They love Terry.
Yeah, they do. And John Keim, actually, right before we started recording, has reported that it's unlikely that the Redskins are going to be able to extend Sheriff before the start of the season. That worries me because that it rears the head around of the whole Kirk situation again, of negative feelings, of having this animosity between player and organization happening during a season. Do you guys think there's going to be any repercussions from this?
I'll say no, for the simple fact that Sheriff has already came out previous, I think, and said that he wants to be a Redskin. He wants to stay here. He wants to get that contract done. I mean, obviously, not getting it done might swing things. But I think with the whole new regime here, with Kyle Smith and Ron Rivera kind of taking over that GM role together, I think they realize how good Sheriff is, how good of a player Sheriff is. I'd almost go as far as to say maybe Ron Rivera targeted him as one of the core young players on the team. And I think it'll get done. If not before, then hopefully next offseason so we can have a Pro Bowl caliber guard starter.
Absolutely. And I'm worried that this situation is going to rear its ugly head again. I don't want to go through that whole process. Why can't we have what the Kansas City Chiefs did? Just re-signing a good player, and making sure that they are going to be here. I'm not saying give them a 10-year contract, but I'm just saying making sure that there is no negative situation. If both sides want to be there, then why don't we just get it done? You know what I mean? What is your input there, Reed?
Well, hold on. Before Reed goes, I will say this, though. It kind of circles back to the whole Trent Williams thing.
Yeah.
Where, Ron Rivera came in and he said, I know you guys are on these 1-year deals. I want to get the feel for you, kind of.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Improve it.
Valid.
So maybe,
yeah.
obviously, Sheriff, if he stays healthy, he's going to be a top 2, top 3 guard in the league. So maybe throughout the season, sometime this upcoming season, they'll get that long-term deal done.
Yeah. I completely. I was just about to say that. I mean, Ron Rivera literally said that these players with 1 year left on their contract, he wants to see what they have. He wants to see who he can trust, who he can build around, who he can rely on. And I think that kind of goes into it. And I think they know how valuable Sheriff is to this offense. He's the only player right now on our offense to have made a Pro Bowl other than Adrian Peterson.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that he's somebody you can build on. He's one of the building blocks on the offensive line, one of our better offensive linemen. And him, how important it is to Ron Rivera how important the lines are, having strong lines. So I think that they will get it done. I just think he's just taking the same approach that he takes with everybody. Unfortunately, it sucks. But it's good that he's not giving anybody special treatment. You know, he's saying, even you guys that have made the Pro Bowl, you veterans, still got to prove to me that you want to be here and that you're going to play my way. And I think it's a good thing, and hopefully it gets done. But you're right, Kyle, because of the Kirk and the Trent situations, it does kind of scare you a little bit. There's a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah, and look, Hall brings up a very valid and good point. That Ron Rivera means what he says. And when he came here, he said, I'm not doing any contract extensions until we see you guys, we discuss what your future plans are, everything would have you. And it begs the question, did the quarantine kind of affect the contract negotiations? Would, if they were able to have OTAs and be able to work out in the facility, would Brandon Sheriff would have had those contract talks by then, because they would be able to discuss, be able to see each other, see how they gel. I wonder if the coronavirus had any input on that. What do you think, Hall?
Yeah, no, you bring up a very, very, very great point. Like you said, you can't see each other face to face. I mean, obviously, you can get kind of a feel for each other over Zoom meetings and in like the Zoom classroom little like off-season meetings or whatever. But like you said, until you look someone in the eye, you talk to them face to face, kind of see if you gel, kind of get that that coach to player vibe, I guess if you want to call it. Yeah, so I definitely feel like it affected it, but like I said, I'm definitely kind of on the scared side with you guys, but I think it'll get done because, as y'all said, he's one of our better players, and hopefully Ron Rivera target him as a core player going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we get into the Mahomes contract, I kind of want to go over with you guys how you guys feel about the possible name. I know that we went over with Lake Lewis about his thoughts on what he thinks the Redskins name will be, but I want to ask you guys, what do you think the Redskins name should be? Do you guys have any favorites? Do you have like a late sleeper or anything like that?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Can I lead this one off? I think that you change the name to the Washington Indians and just watch heads explode. Just watch people lose their minds. No, I think that Warriors, like Blake said, I think that that's kind of like, if I were to put a percentage on it, I would say honestly like 75% that that's what it's going to be. Like I just have a feeling that's what it is. But the only other one that's kind of grown on me is Red Wolves, in a sense, just because it would be cool to have the Wolves thing, and like that ties into Native Americans, military. But like you said, Kyle, if you have to explain why that ties in with the military, maybe that's not the best situation. That was a valid point. So I think it's got to be the Warriors. It just makes too much sense. Like you talked about with Blake, that's literally all signs are pointing that way right now. Red Tail sucks, by the way. I love the message behind it. Horrible name. Imagine the memes that are going to come out that are going to be, well, they only have red tails because they're always getting their ass kicked. No.
Yeah, no, I mean, I feel the same way. I always said, like, obviously, as a black man, like the Red Tails, that's a cool story and everything like that. But it's
right.
Football team name is kind of like, and I feel
not for me.
With that name, it's kind of like you're taken away from one way, and you're just kind of totally trying to 360 appease to a whole other like side of things, which, you know, but yeah, as far as like my number one leader in the clubhouse, I would definitely go with Warriors. That's the only one that's kind of, I guess I would be 100% okay with, just because, as you see, the hat, the W is the Washington. Maybe we'll get some of that Golden State special sauce, and it'll rub off on us. But,
dude, I hate that argument. The fact that people are like, well, there's the Golden State Warriors, and we'll always be in
Cardinals.
Right, we'll always be in their shadow. What are you talking about? The New York Rangers do not live in the shadow of the Texas. I mean, the Texas Rangers don't live in the shadow of the New York Rangers. What do you mean? It's just the name of a team.
The New York Giants don't live in the shadow of the San Francisco Giants. There's so many examples of it.
Right.
Cardinals.
You can have like a name for a team in different sports. That's not insane. And I thought that was such a ridiculous argument from people. But the worst one of it all was the people saying you can't say you can't have the name Warriors because the Native American community would not accept it. Now, look, I understand. I get it. Like, I'm a white dude. I can't be really speaking on race and everything. I get it. But my whole point is, when did this become about appeasing Native Americans rather than taking away a racist name and making the world less racist? That's my problem here. Are we just trying to eliminate all Native American imagery and logos? Because if that's the point, then that's what we're doing.
Right, and that kind of it's going to end up coming full circle because I've seen multiple times today on Twitter Native Americans standing up. So originally the reports were saying that 9 out of 10 Native Americans do not find the name Redskins offensive. And I get that if one person finds it offensive, change the name. But what's happening now is the Native Americans that wore the Redskins as a badge of honor, that found that respectful to them, that's getting taken away. And now all of a sudden they don't want to be fans of the franchise anymore because they're not paying tribute to me anymore. Why would I want to be a fan of that just got taken away? That offends me. So then what's going to happen? What if they're offended and they speak up and it's even more of them and they're like, we're offended that you don't have anything to do with this. And then it's just a big circle of cancer culture bullshit just going around and around. Then it's just going to keep pointing fingers.
Yeah, and
never going to stop.
I saw this other tweet too where it was like a list of like the Vikings, the Raiders, the Cowboys, even the Buffalo Bills, where I don't even know if this is true or not because I didn't like actually look it up. But it was like the Bills were named after like some dude named Buffalo
Bill.
The serial killer.
Some dude
from,
like super
Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah, he was like some
It's not what I heard.
The dude who's tucking his wiener between his legs and putting on lipstick. He puts Joe Dirt in the hole.
It puts the lotion on the skin.
Yeah, that's Buffalo Bill. That offends me.
Right. No, but like it brings up a solid point because this is the reason why. Look, I understand. Look, I respect the hell out of Lake. I really do. I love the work that he does. But like, I feel like there's an issue there with if one person finds an issue with it. I feel like that's a slippery slope here because then we're gonna change everything if one person has a problem with it or not. And where is it? Are we just trying to make the world less racist, or are we just trying to appease everyone? And you're not in the one rule of life. Not everyone's not going to love you and everything that you say. You're always going to have people that have a problem with something. And so I just feel like it's just a half-ass way to go away from the name Warriors because there might be some repercussions from it. At this point, no, we're changing the racist name and that's it. That's done with. And I think, Reed, you're 100% right. And with Lake said that Dan Snyder having a lot to do with the Native American community, it would make a lot of sense for him to listen to Native Americans saying, "Hey, dude, we don't appreciate that."
Yeah, and
well, by saying they don't appreciate it, meaning like withdrawing the logo and the Native American connection.
And Lake was 100% right about Dan Snyder doing. Apparently, Dan Snyder's done the most for Native Americans of any owner in the NFL. Donated the most amount of money, done all sorts of stuff. So it's so weird. To me, it's just such a weird era that we're in, but I understand it. And at this point, I think we all three of us agree that like we just kind of want to move on. We just kind of want to hurry up and change the name and let's get this over with because we know it's coming. And one thing I thought was interesting is Lindsay Sarniak. She was saying that she believes that Dan Snyder has been talking with Matthew McConaughey about a name change. Imagine Matthew McConaughey naming the team.
Yeah.
The Washington, all right. Something stupid like that. Like the Washington would be a whole lot cooler if he did.
Right, and like judging by his commercials, I made the joke, he's gonna try to change it to the Washington Leather, just like something bland and just doesn't make any sense,
You're making a Washington Lincoln. It's the car and Abraham Lincoln. He's at the statue in DC.
Yeah.
Now, look, I love Matthew McConaughey, and I'm glad that Dan is reaching out to people. But one other thing I heard from John Keim I saw some tweets circulating that said that like Dan was like away, like out on his yacht somewhere this whole time, and he's like has like his confidant of friends, close friends, and it begs the question, dude. Like when back like in March and April, we were literally yelling about Dan Snyder going on vacation for a year and letting like the Redskins run the front office. And so it begs the question, did he do that?
Right. Hey, and that's another. Go ahead, Hall.
He was like, listen to these guys.
The one time too, like everybody's saying that like the majority owners, we talked about this before, but before we went on air, but like the other owners are like trying to shun Snyder. They're trying to get away from the team. They're trying to sell their stake in the team, and everybody wants Snyder to sell the team. And it's like, if this was any other year, I feel like every Redskins fan would go, thank God he's about to sell the team. But like this year, it's like, man, we just hired Rivera, finally letting go of the reins a little bit and letting things kind of happen. And then you're going to probably sell it to somebody who didn't want to move the team. And then everybody's just like, maybe don't sell it yet, Snyder. I still want to sell it. But.
Dude, that is a really good point. It is because, everyone's like, there's people who've made Twitter accounts strictly saying, sell the team. You know, like trying to get Dan to do it. And honestly, that's dwindled down.
I have a shirt that literally says, "Dear Ted, please buy the football team." Talking about the Warners and Ted Leonsis. Like, they just, please get Snyder out of there. But now we're like, pump the brakes.
Yeah.
Brakes a little bit.
And I thought it was really, really weird how Nike, FedEx, Pepsi, the shareholders, they say it publicly, hey, we want you guys to change the name. Okay, whatever. Dan releases a statement and says, yeah, we're going to change the name. Then a week later, they say, oh, okay, we don't want part of the stakes anymore. We want to sell it. To me, it almost seemed like they were trying to like push the process going faster. It's like they were not accepting of how slow it was going. And so, because why wouldn't you just say that in the first place?
Yeah.
Like, why would you even ask the question instead of just saying straight up, we're thinking about withholding our, buying out our stakes because we don't like the name. The timing just seemed like they were trying to push Dan.
That goes with the reports I was hearing and seeing all over Twitter and social media saying that, like all the beat reporters, the John Times and people like that, saying that,
oh no. Dude,
really? Trying to hold out as long as you could, and trying to see like maybe like a month or two from now if like the social
die out,
and then maybe like the whole name change thing will die down with it. So yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. And it's like, all right, you're not doing as fast as we said we wanted it done. So pull them up.
Yeah, and one thing that I was hearing was that a lot of the owners around the NFL are kind of getting sick of Snyder, and that they're they kind of want him gone. And one of the things that the Nike issue does, them pulling all the Redskins merch, is that 31 NFL teams split the merchandise sales. The only one team that doesn't is the Cowboys, so that they have their own deal with Nike. But so that is kind of affecting their sales and their numbers with the Redskins merch not being available. So that's putting pressure from those owners on Snyder, and they're saying, hurry the fuck up, change the name, you need to get your merchandise back on there. So it's a lose-lose for Dan, because it's like, it sucks because if he changes the name, he pleases a bunch of people that probably don't give a shit about football anyway. And when he changes the name, he's also going to piss off a lot of the fan base who are saying that they're going to leave and stuff. But I don't know. It's weird. I just want him to hurry up and do it.
Yeah, and look here, Doc Walker. It looks like Adam Aniba just sent me a private message. The guest that we had on Thursday. Make sure you go check out that pod. It was actually great. Adam has a new column out about the Redskins linebacking core and how that roster, that depth chart should break down. For Redskins fans, you want to get away from the name change, please go there. Oh, shoot. Okay, so this is actually a private message between Adam Aniba and Doc Walker. And he said, if they've been talking about the name change for the past 2 weeks, then I think they know what he wants and that it will get the job done. He likes Warriors, and it would be my guess that will be the name.
Okay. That's what we've all thought.
Yeah, so I mean, that tells you right there. Because, look, Doc Walker doesn't get much closer than that. You know, there's only maybe a handful of guys like Doug Williams possibly that have a more of a plug-in with Redskins Park. But I love this. This makes the most sense. I've loved the name Warriors for years, and I've always said this. I'm not against a name change. I am not. I said there was only one reason why I would accept the name change, and that is to get away and separate ourselves from George Preston Marshall just a little bit more. Just to get us away from him, to cut off all ties from that guy. That's it. But if you're going to tell me that we have to appease people and that we can't have the Warriors name because it offends Native Americans, then, dude, what are we doing here? I thought the name was racist. I thought that's why we were changing it. You know what I mean? Right. So if this is the thought process behind it, I love it. I love the name Warriors. You can honor the military. You can honor Native Americans. You can keep the uniform colors. And also you can bring in, like Ron Rivera wanted, the salute to service uniform that I would absolutely love to get my hands on. I can't wait for that.
That's another thing that Ron Rivera, when he was asked about the uniforms a few weeks ago, that kind of also lets you know that they've been talking about this in Snyder. Like, this isn't just some new thing that just because the sponsors pulled out. Like, this has kind of been the direction that they were heading, because remember, he started talking about, he was like, I would like to incorporate black and some camouflage and all this. And it's like, okay, maybe they were already in discussions, already a little further in the process than originally thought. They already had some ideas about uniforms and colors and designs, things they can do. So, I don't know. I like it. I think that would make the most sense.
Yeah, and look, you know me. I've been talking about the black uniform that I've been wanting for a long time. I've always felt like the Redskins needed one. I know everyone would say it's not in the color scheme, but like I don't care. I just love like the Redskins colors. Burgundy goes so well with black, and then you have the gold to complement that. I just think that they all gel so well together. And can you imagine? Not this season because there's no primetime games, but next season at primetime Monday Night Football, the Redskins roll out with their lights out uniforms, all black uniforms with burgundy numbers with the gold outline, and then with the a new concept helmet, dude.
Yeah, you got the burgundy and blackout in the crowd if there's fans.
Right.
Right.
Get like a blackout going in the stadium, kind of like generate the fan base a little bit more. Like you might be on to something there, buddy.
Yeah, there, old Kyle.
Yeah, you know me. I love the all black uniform and then also the all white. I mean, we need to bring that back as well.
Speaking of which, why don't we get Patrick Mahomes to buy the Redskins? I feel like he could probably afford it now.
And that's a perfect segue, Michael Reed.
I couldn't miss it. I know.
You got in front of me on that one. Yes, it got released yesterday that Pat Mahomes has signed a 10-year, $503 million contract. A $500 million contract. That's more than baseball money. Insane to hear. And then also the certain language in the contract is unprecedented, guaranteeing Pat Mahomes being the highest paid quarterback throughout the contract extension. And then so Hall, Reed, we talked about this before we started recording. What they did is they extended Pat Mahomes. They didn't renew the contract. They extended him, which means that he's still on his rookie contract for 2 more seasons before this thing kicks off. So everyone's saying, how are they extending Pat Mahomes? They don't have any money in salary cap. They already had that allocated for years down the road. What is your Hall? What is your reaction to this? Look, we're all Pat Mahomes fans, but the timing was surprising.
Yeah, the timing was definitely surprising. The length, the years was definitely surprising. But yeah, it kind of took me back to the whole like Michael Vick contract.
Yeah.
I want to obviously didn't finish that out.
Are you covering your mic? I can barely hear you. Yeah.
Sounds like you're underwater.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, you sound better now.
Okay, you're good now. Yeah.
But now, yeah, he definitely deserves it. Obviously, MVP, 50 touchdowns.
You just covered your mic again.
Is it good?
Yeah.
Yeah, MVP in his second year, 50 touchdowns. Super Bowl in his third year, Super Bowl MVP. Clearly, the amount of years is what kind of got me. I didn't expect 10 years.
Right.
But when you get 10 years, kind of like the John Gruden contract, I mean, you throw all the money all the money in the world at him as you want, and he definitely deserves it. So I wish he was a Redskins quarterback.
And look, the funny thing is the repercussions of this, there's a ripple effect. Because Deshaun Watson is going to be needing to get paid soon. And then Lamar Jackson after him. And so there's a bunch of quarterbacks.
Dak still needs a contract.
Yeah, I'm not talking about Dak. He can go.
No, but I hope that they do something like that and just completely blow their cap money.
He can go suck a Dak.
Give the wrong quarterback money. Oh,
yeah.
I like that one.
Yeah. No, but honestly, this is like, Kansas City just seems to be doing the right thing. And this was the perfect opportunity for them. I made the joke that I wanted to extend Terry McLaurin now because, I was so excited about what he did as a rookie. But look, it needs to and I like how Kansas City got ahead of it. They didn't let that animosity build up of contract extensions like you see with Dak and the Cowboys, not wanting to play on the franchise tag. And then he signs a franchise tag. They didn't even let it get to that point. They said, let's extend him now. Let's give him an uncharted contract because the guy actually deserves it. And hats off to the Kansas City Chiefs for getting that done. It makes their football team better, and they are going to be whooping that division's butt for many years to come.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Like you said, it's more than baseball money. Mike Trout had the biggest contract in sports prior to this. That was 10 years, $426 million. Pat Mahomes got 10 years, $503 million. That's crazy. That's $500 million that they're going to have. I mean, obviously, he deserves it. The things that he's done in this league in his first 3 years have been uncanny. He's 2 years as a starter. But it's just unreal, like the amount of money if you really think about it. But it's good for him, man. He deserves it. I personally don't think anybody's going to get anywhere close to that amount from a franchise. And I don't think anybody else deserves it. But it's just like if you look at the next highest paid player, I believe it's Matt Ryan at 150 mil. That's his contract.
Yeah.
Pat Mahomes has 3 times as much as that.
Yeah,
more than 3 times as much as that.
Because you can honestly say there'd be a good chance that Pat Mahomes would have 2 Super Bowls right now if it wasn't for D Ford lining up off sides.
Right. That's true.
It's crazy. Look, everyone could talk about, you have to win games. That was a big thing with Kirk. Kirk didn't win games and everything. His stats look good. But with Pat Mahomes with that one, that's not Pat Mahomes' fault.
No.
He doesn't play defense on that play. They had the game booked. And I think he's proven it time and time again. He's worth every single penny.
Yeah. Another thing that I read, it was for the last 3 seasons over the last 2 seasons, who's had the highest QBR over 50 for consecutive games. The number 2 spot had 8. Patrick Mahomes had 35. Patrick Mahomes has started 35 games in his NFL career. Every single game was he never had a bad game.
Yeah, no,
He's never had a bad game.
What?
My face was the exact same when I saw that stat. I saw it on SportsCenter. I was like
the next one is 8. The dude's at 35.
Yep.
No, he hasn't had a bad game his whole career, literally.
Look, I know that's a lot of
50.
I know that's a lot of credit to Pat Mahomes, but I feel like it is an a combination of Andy Reid's play calling, making everything easier for the quarterback with a whole bunch of the dump offs with the running backs and everything, the swing plays, and then having Travis Kelce there. I mean, that's just a recipe for success. They have blossomed in 35-8. That's just incredible. Yeah. And he hasn't had one bad game.
Not one bad. Every one of his starts, that's been good.
Yeah, and look,
good. Can you imagine what this offense is going to look like? This man Andy Reid's probably just been quarantined in his house in his basement, just growing up,
picking out Hawaiian shirts and
picking out which. That's the hardest thing he had to do this offseason was just pick which Hawaiian shirt he was going to wear to the conference.
but it's so true that when a very talented offensive mind like that gets paired up with just the most crazy, naturally skilled quarterback in the NFL, they're going to be a problem for a very long time. Yes. Just because of those two together. And Bieniemy returning. They're returning 10 starters from a Super Bowl team on offense, and the only starter that they're not returning is a first-round pick running back that they have lined up back there. It's going to be – that offense is scary.
Yeah, and then you're talking about Chris Jones and that contract sitting there, which makes you think maybe they can offer him a small year, maybe 1 to 2 year kind of deal to extend him just to carry over until Pat Mahomes' contract really kicks in. It begs the question, because if Kansas City, I know Denver's offense is looking incredible this year, but you have to give it to the Chiefs. They're going to run through that division.
Yeah, they should. They should win the Super Bowl again.
Yeah, that's a good point. They should. I mean, who else in that division is actually going to stand a chance? Look, I like everything that the Raiders did in the offseason, but nobody's putting out the kind of offensive output that the Chiefs are. They're just
think about what they did in the playoffs this year. Just being down 24-0, and they were still just we got it, and they came back and won. They were down. What was it? 20-10 in the Super Bowl or something like that in the fourth quarter, and they were like, we'll win. And they won. They're just
left. We'll just put up 3 or 4 touchdowns.
Yeah, that does. We're down 24-0 in the first half against the Titans. It's all good. We're good. We have Patrick Mahomes. We're fine.
Yeah, look, I love Kyle Shanahan, but that seems to be an ongoing theme with him in big games of getting up early and then not being able to make some adjustments.
28-3.
Yep.
People aren't even really talking about that a lot too. That's a good point.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Look, I love him. I think he's an offensive genius. I was telling people this back in 2011, in 2010. I absolutely love his offensive mind. He knows exactly how to get wide receivers open. I think the best thing about Kyle Shanahan is his ability to have the ratio and have a good ratio of having a balanced running game and then having the play action work off of that. He's just an offensive genius in that capacity, and it just weirds me out that for some reason in these second halves of these big games, he just forgets how to get guys open.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, I think that's going to wrap us up for this show, unless you guys have anything else to add.
Yeah, just shout out to Lake Lewis for coming on, man.
Yeah.
Huge guest for us. Appreciate that.
Yeah, look, I tried getting Hull to to ask the question, but I guess he didn't see my text.
And you like jumped it. I was just like,
So I didn't know if you were or not because I was like waiting and I was like I don't want that awkward like moment of pause. You know what I mean? Because I felt bad because the whole time you were just like sitting there not saying anything at all, and I felt bad. I was like, Mike loves Lake Lewis. Like he should be able to talk to him.
Yeah, no, that's
Hey, but it was a great time. Lake Lewis gave us a lot of insight, guys. And I apologize for the popping noises and all the extra noise that you're hearing this episode. We had some technical difficulties with headphones and the microphones, what have you. So I really appreciate you guys sticking through. If you've made it through this far, it really says a lot about you guys. I really appreciate you guys. All right, everybody. Remember, go like and share our page on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can find our podcast on YouTube, iTunes, Facebook, and on Good Pods, a new a new podcast app where it's like it's social based, where you can interact with your friends on Good Pods and just send them the link to a podcast and they can listen to that podcast, one that you enjoy. You know, because a lot of people, the way you talk about podcasts is in person. Hey, man, I really started listening to this new podcast. I love it. Good Pods makes it a lot easier for you to be able to talk to your friends about it. So I want to say thank you guys for tuning in tonight. I really appreciate Lake Lewis for coming on. That is a great dude and a very intelligent, hardworking guy. And it was an honor to be able to have him on the show today. All right, everybody. I'm Kyle.
I'm Paul.
And I am 13% Native American, and I am throwing in the hat the name for this franchise to be the Washington Wagon Burners.
Oh, dude, did you see Trump's tweet about Elizabeth Warren?
That was the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life.
I was dying laughing.
That was the perfect tweet.
It was.
That was the perfect tweet. It had it all.
We don't talk about politics.
Redskins,
I'm sorry.
And then
I thought
Elizabeth
it was funny.
Warren joke. It's funny.
It's funny. Hall, you have to admit it's funny.
Yeah, no, I laughed. I saw the tweet.
It was a good
zing. It was a good zing. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you guys. We'll see you guys on Thursday. All right. Redskins football. Woo!